Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first L&D TA Leadership League Twangout on creating and deploying a superior and a differentiated candidate experience. A People Matters initiative in association with People Strong. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Savita from People Matters, and I will run you through a little about the League, and then we'll straight move into the session. This is the second edition to the TA Leadership League. We will bring before you a different set of activities that will give us opportunity and ensure that each of us learns, shares, and grows. This year we have full-day conferences, 30 minutes master classes, Twangout session like this one, annual conference, TA Leadership League awards, and newsletters with updates on latest trends. Do make sure that you be a part of all of this and also be a part of the league. With this, I'd like to introduce you to our speaker for today, Prithvi Shergill, Chief Human Resource Officer at HCL. He is someone who actually does not require a lot of introduction. He's one who considers employees first and then the rest of him and the organization. That's what he is fond of, integral part of himself. He designed 2014 as a year of the candidate. Join me in welcoming Prithvi. Hi Prithvi, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure to have you at our first TA Leadership League Twangout.
I've been looking forward to this, so thank you so much for inviting me, and I look forward to the conversation.
Our host for the day, Deepa, should be joining in shortly. She's having some technical difficulty while joining in. Meanwhile, let us continue, and I'll remind you that you can follow us on Twitter using the hashtag #TALeague. Please share your comments and post your questions, and Deepa and I will pick up them for Prithvi and post them to Prithvi on the live session. For those not on Twitter yet, just inbox me your questions at savita.vijayan@peoplematters.in. That's savita.vijayan. While we encourage you definitely to be a part of the conversation on Twitter. We have some exciting giveaways for all of you today. 1-year print and digital subscription for the People Matters magazine and online for the most active Twitter listener. So just keep tweeting. With this, I will not be between you and Prithvi anymore. So let's start the conversation. I'm very, very excited to start this conversation. How excited are you, Prithvi, today?
You know, anytime one talks about you know, the experience of finding a job, I think people always feel a little excited and a little nervous. I think I'm feeling the same way. So I'm keen to hear what people have to say and share perspectives.
Sure, thank you so much. So before we actually start on with understanding of questions from Twitter and you replying back to them, what do you think are your broad views on creating a differentiated candidate experience?
So, you know, I look at it from my perspective as, you know, candidates are at the end of the day one of the most important stakeholders from where I sit. So, one, if you look at it from a human resources practitioner's perspective, many of us joined this profession to make a difference in people's lives and livelihoods. And you know, you direct impact that every time you offer advice, counsel, select, assess people who are looking for opportunities. I think from a business perspective, if you wear that hat, you know, recruiting candidates are your lifeline. Especially in the IT industry, at the end of the day, without focusing on that, there is no business. And if you look at it, you know, so from all vantage, the importance of treating the candidates almost like a customer, you know, putting the candidate first, it becomes a critical aspect of all our jobs. And that's how I view this. And you need to I think you need to ensure that one understands all the touch points in the experience that a candidate goes through, and ensures that each one of them is like a moment of truth where people really go away understanding and feeling that they've got what they were looking for from that interaction.
Absolutely. All right. Thanks for setting the context, Prithvi. I will just ask you another question, which is there are a lot of organizations who change recruitment structures for the organizations as part of organization strategy. So, do you think that all of this is done keeping the candidate in mind?
I wish I could say that that is a fact in all situations. I would venture that is not the case. I think when it comes to recruiting structures, there are many pressures that, like any organization faces, one has to consider before deciding what to do. Uh, but like any business as well, if you make sure that you recognize what creates the most value in a process and you design your structure around that, you get the best outcome. And in our
Hmm.
experience, and for the many gray hairs that I've picked up, I think the best filter when one looks at a construct for the recruiting organization is the candidate. If you center your decisions looking through the eyes of a candidate, you really come out with the best outcome. Unfortunately, I don't think that's always easy. I think it's a balancing act. One needs to look at organizational pressures, whether it be funding, it will be budgets. One needs to sometimes look at capability. What kind of capacity do you have? What kind of abilities does your team have? What kind of channels are you going after? What kind of talent do you have? What kind of skill pools are you looking for? So I think you need to consider all that. But when the final crunch comes and you have to make a decision between A and B, I think the best way, the hardest decisions are between right and right. So,
Hmm.
looking at all these elements that impact a structured decision, you need to, A will be a little different than B, but both may be effective.
Absolutely. So you were talking about how, as an organizational strategy, how is it that a candidate plays a very important role while there are recruitment structures being changed.
Absolutely. I'm not sure where I got cut off, but I was just wrapping up saying that, I think the best decisions, even though there are many elements that impact a structural decision, really gets made when you look at it from the candidate's eye, from the candidate's eyes, and you really think about what is this structure going to make him experience. Because there are many pressures that leads into making a final call on what the structure should be.
Right.
So that's really, my view. But does it happen? Does it not happen? I think that is the debate that goes on. Many times, people who have to reach this decision have to take into account a lot other elements than just the candidate experience.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, absolutely. So while you're talking about a decision that an industry and as an HR professional or a business person has to take, just one question: is it true that you should look at only your peer companies? For example, if it's an IT or ITES company, you tend to look at a recruitment structure or a policy of a similar kind of an organization. Is it stereotyped, or should you look beyond and look at a manufacturing per se? Maybe they are doing something good on how they are actually keeping the candidate in mind while changing policies and structures.
No, I think you can always learn from various places.
Hmm.
So I think it's very dangerous to think that recruiting is industry specific. I do believe that the process of recruiting at the end of the day, the common feature across all industries is the candidate to our topic today. So there is always a learning across, but I think there are implications. In the IT industry, the kind of profile that you're recruiting for, the kind of experience that profile is looking for is different than what maybe the profile you're looking for in a manufacturing setup or a consumer services setup. So it's the same way as when you look at marketing or sales. The customer that you're serving, a guy who is coming in from one background, maybe looking for a very different experience when he is buying in a supermarket versus another. And I think that's one of the things that we are always in the danger of doing is painting our recruiting process in a broad brush and saying that everybody should be treated in this fashion and everybody should go through the same process. I think one needs to remember that like in customer management, you do segmentation the same way. And when you look at candidates, one needs to really look at candidate segmentation, and what the experience should be for a entry level hire, what the experience should be for a lateral and experienced hire, what the experience should be for a senior management hire, needs to be differentiated. And that could be that also depends on the industries you're in. So I think there is various things you can learn across industry, but I think one needs to recognize that the customer or the candidate coming to your shop or to recruit who you are looking to recruit is not the same. And therefore, really, you need to design your process to respond to his needs. And if you learn something from elsewhere, excellent. But be a little cautious in what you pick up and what you apply. The biggest danger to your question is, we HR and recruiting professionals fall into the trap is of, oh, let's look at benchmarking and do what somebody else is doing because we believe that is what is the right way to do it. And I think it's very dangerous to apply benchmarking, whether it's across industry or in your own industry, without very rigorous review of what is applicable and what is not.
Well, we have questions on my inbox, also on Twitter. So, starting with one question which has first come on my inbox from Ritu Chaudhary. What aspect should organizations consider most important for creating a unique candidate experience while also choosing the best fit?
I think two things are emerging very important in today's world, if I understood the question right. I think one is really the ability of the candidate to be successful in your organization. We used to talk about it as culture fit, and that is important, absolutely. But beyond culture, which is really what does the candidate believe in the same values that the organization is aligned to? Does the candidate believe in the same way of working that the organization demands and demonstrates? Those are important aspects and will always remain fundamental to the way we look at selection. But I think the other piece is what team is the individual coming in to work with? Who is he going to need to collaborate with? Who is going to have dependencies on that individual? Who is the individual going to be dependent on? And can he add or she add value in those interactions? I think that ability to fit into the team is the second aspect which has become much more important in today's world. Candidate selection is really around how does he fit into the overall organizational culture, but the other is at a more micro level, how does he fit into my team? Issues such as technical, professional, industry, domain skills, those are passes to the party. If you don't have those and then you're really not invited to the conversation. Beyond, once you meet the threshold of technical, professional, and domain skills, then you can come to the dance floor and talk about, do you fit in the culture, do you fit in the team, and that's what really makes you differentiated when it comes to a selection decision.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, culture fit is something that you brought out quite some time. And we have another question which is come on from an organization wherein it's a younger pool of organization. They say that, FB, tweets, Twangouts are very common now. How do organizations cope with this and rather ride the wave. So this is from an ITES organization. Again, in my inbox, this question would like to know, how is an organization going to cope with so many social media platforms while recruiting?
I think it depends on your candidate audience. If you're, like you said, this the question comes from somebody in a more younger organization.
Yes.
Most probably they are hiring a profile which is also very active on social media. And I
Mhm.
think more and more you are seeing that. We recognize that recently. We actually, just to give an example, ran a campaign called the coolest interview ever.
Okay.
And really it was about sending out a message to the community that we wish to talk to them. We wanted to make them more aware about us, because we realize that a lot of people who have some of the newer skills, especially in the areas of, say, digital systems integration, or some of the more emerging technologies like like social mobility, analytics, clouds, what we call SMAC. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of these people spend much more time getting insight and information from social media. So you have to be present. You have to have a footprint. Partnering closely with organizations like, whether it's LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, which we are using today, becomes key. This campaign that we ran, coolest interview ever, was run on Twitter. And just to give you the amount of it, the impact that it tends to have, we touched organically almost 336 million people across 102 countries over a 2 to 3 week period.
Oh.
And that kind of awareness becomes very hard to really create at the cost that we I think we spent close to about 500K on this campaign, but to reach that amount of audience, if we were to use any other media, would have cost us about at least 10x that amount. The number of people who actively engaged with HCL was over 250,000 people. So we had active participation from over 250,000 people, and all people who were looking for opportunities. This was an interview after all. And I think that just shows the power of Twitter and power of some of the newer social media and the things one can do with that.
So when you have actually strung the chord of Twinterview and the well-known, initiative Nano Effect that HCL brought into, would you like to little give, expand a little bit on the Twinterview as to what you exactly did in there and got, 250,000 people actually up and running on that page?
So we had, close to about 110,000 people viewing the page that we had. We had, I think, a little under 75,000 people visiting it. We actually, on Google, we were ranked number one for, I think, almost 3 weeks. So clearly generated, anybody likes the words coolest. So, that's a good sign. But, it clearly showed that the workforce of today is not hesitant anymore to interview.
Mhm.
They are very comfortable being assessed very much in public, because their questions were open on Twitter. Their people were answering them in public. Um, and many of the people that we had were from companies in our industry. I firmly believe that transparency reached a new level, because if you are comfortable with showing your name on a public platform, or that you are interviewing, clearly, for all you know, your boss or your team member may be interviewing at the same time, because they may be responding at the same time. And that was very much in line with some of our beliefs. We believe strongly that processes should be very transparent. They should be flexible. And these are some core beliefs that we operate with our customers around, and we operate transparently and flexibly with them. And I think candidates deserve the same respect and the same approach. There was significant media coverage on this. I think we had about 50 different international and national media touch us. So the impact, more than the candidate who got selected, we selected one individual. who we actually call the digital advocate, and he's actually going to come and work with us in our social media team.
Okay.
But beyond that one candidate who got declared the winner, I think the opportunity to share HCL's story by behaving in a certain fashion really was much more of an outcome than I expected. I was pleasantly surprised, and clearly shows that social media we know is an integral part of recruiting today, will
Mhm.
continue to strengthen as we go forward as well.
Wow, that's some effort that you have taken. So how long did this campaign actually take you to actually run?
We ran this campaign for a little over 3 weeks.
Okay.
Essentially, making sure that people first understood what the process was, and then answering questions through those weeks, getting shortlisted, and then from the shortlisting, they went through a face-to-face meeting for the
Mm-hmm.
people who were shortlisted, and then finally got selected.
Wow, great. So while you were talking about brand and HCL was building its brand while it was actually doing this, it actually your HCL brand went to 250,000 people on Twitter you mentioned. So we have one question from Harpreet Singh. How a mid-sized company struggling with brand and funding can have optimized recruitment policy to fulfill ad hoc requirements.
Funding is a challenge everywhere. I think it's just a matter of scale. I think the first thing to really figure out is what talent supply chain you need. What is the number of candidates that your mid-sized company is looking to recruit at the end of the year, and really having a good handle on analytics. What is the number of people who come for an interview? How many get processed? From the number of resumes you receive, how many are qualified, and if you know that supply chain, if you understand that supply chain well, I think you are in a very good position then to define what kind of reach you need to have. So
Hmm.
from my perspective, that becomes the first to do. If you're trying to recruit 100 candidates and you need to touch say 1,000, now you know that how do I reach the best 1,000. Second thing you need to know is where your candidates are. Where are you going to find these people? And that's when you get into a conversation. Really, the third stage is what channels can you reach them through in the most effective manner.
Hmm.
And once you reach them, you need to then think through how you're going to attract them enough to apply to you, and how can you make that experience of them understanding what your mid-sized company does. How is it easy to apply for a job? I think those are policy decisions you need to make. So is your website attractive? Are you away? Is there enough information available about you in the public domain? Are you recruiting in the cities where your talent sits, or in the communities that they are in? HCL at any point of time in India alone, on any given weekend, would be in over 25 cities in the country, even though our offices are only in about 7 or 8 cities in India,
Hmm.
because we recognize that you have to go to the candidates. So you have to be a little targeted about that. And those are the policy decisions you need to make. I think to actually make sure that the pass-throughs are high, and you get who you are looking for.
So while we are talking about candidate experience, we have another question again on my email ID, which says, "Could you please give a few examples of creating differentiated candidate experience at different levels of hierarchy?"
And I think that's a very interesting question, because like I was saying earlier, I think trying to figure out what is important for an entry hire versus what is important to a senior management hire becomes very important. It's not the same thing. So if you really look at what an entry level hire looks at, is really ease of application. What kind of experience does he have when he comes and visits the office? to the office? Is he being made to wait a long time? Those are the kinds of things one needs to make sure are addressed so that uh, the individual uh, gets uh, gets through the process into the stage of conversation quickly and is not spending too much time getting his resume through or his application through the website. Make sure that when the person comes to the office, there is an interviewer available quickly before the person leaves. At least has a good sense what the next steps will be. And some of these are core to all candidates actually.
Mm.
But I think these simple things become important even for the entry level hire. For the senior level hire, I think you need to spend more time making sure they understand why the job is important. So therefore, the person who speaks to them first becomes very important. You can't throw a senior hire straight into an assessment mode. Sometimes you need to make sure the senior hire understands how he fits it into the job better. So the contextual information that a senior hire needs is much more than at different levels of the hierarchy. An experienced hire, mid-tier, middle-level management would want to know which project, which client is he going to work for. And so really you're talking about three or four different things. You're trying to figure out the logistical parts of the candidate experience. Are you starting on time? Is my time being used is it being used in a smart fashion? Are the questions that are being asked about, are they relevant? Am I being allowed to ask and get information? So those are the kinds of things at the very minimal you need to provide. I think the second piece is really the more higher levels. You need to really think about access. How can I get him to meet people who are just beyond, not just the assessor, but beyond. So those are some ideas that come to mind. But I'm happy to answer any other questions, or if any more detail is useful, I'll be happy to share.
Sure, sure. We have another question from our Facebook, which reads: Is there a way to measure the candidate experience, like a survey or anything that you suggest in particular?
Yeah, we do a survey both, at the events where we have the candidates come in. We also talk to candidates who have joined us as after being selected. We also try and go back to candidates after the process, after a month or a few weeks of the process, to find out how it was. They tend to be more honest after they know the decision. Otherwise, before they know
Mm.
the decision, they tend to be much more upbeat about everything was great. But the candidate who doesn't get accepted usually is more honest about his experience after he knows that.
Mm.
But the one thing I'm really keen, and which we found has been interesting, and we need to do more of even at HCL, is really around blind candidate experiences, which is really making sure that we push through candidates through the process who test the process hard. Difficult
Mm.
candidates, people who sort of demand more. It's like the same thing what you would do with a blind customer, where your team or your restaurant doesn't know that the customer eating is actually testing out whether the food he's getting, the service he's getting is good. I think we need to
Yes.
do more of that. We've tried that once in a while in my experience, and the insights you get from that is always exciting and interesting to mirror back to the team and say, this is what really happens on the ground.
That's interesting. So the blind candidate experience is so much like a mystery shopping that we
That's right.
undergo. Yes. So it's very similar to that. Great. So we have another question right here. How do you leverage on the pool of rejected candidates for future opportunities?
I think the best way to leverage that is never to consider a person rejected.
Wow.
you know I think if you start thinking you are rejecting candidates, and they will always stay rejected, you're living in a fool's paradise. I think in today's world, people who have resilience, who are adaptable, and who have what we are looking for as a quality of ability to learn, really are people what we're trying to identify. They may not fit a particular role, they may not fit a particular opportunity because of the assessment done at a point in time, but give it 12 months, give it 24 months, you may find a different answer.
Hmm.
And therefore, it's very important to keep a very good database. More importantly than just maintaining a database, it's important to engage with that database. So we tend to uh, create newsletters, and we tend to create digital media which we can share across with candidates on a regular basis, at least once or twice a year. You do anything more than 3-4 times a year, it'll go into spam, and people will think you're sending them junk mail. So it's very important that you stay connected with the candidate, so that he knows what's happening at your company or at, and when the time comes when you go back to him and say, hey, these are new opportunities emerging, he doesn't feel turned off because you dropped him like a hot potato when he was rejected the first time, and you've actually treated him or her with respect right through even after.
Wow, that was great. So the way that you mentioned that a candidate who has been rejected is not to be considered as rejected is something a takeaway for the one who has asked this question. We have another question. Now, this is more of an analogy. I'll read this out to you. It's again on my inbox. In this crowded marketplace, we are finding wherein everybody is trying to find the right candidate, right skill, right place, right time. Is it what keeps it up all night? Is candidate experience the new mantra, or what has to be kept in mind to get all this at one place?
I mean, I think like I said, I think there are many aspects one needs to keep in mind around winning in this talent market. But
Hmm.
I think that the key is at the end of the day, you are trying to make sure that the decision goes in your favor from the individual that you're spending time with, especially if you find that individual fits what you're looking for. And a lot of times it's not just what does the individual who's considering you as an employer really know about you as an organization. He knows what his aunt, uncle, grandmother, grandfather, have said about that company. A lot of times, especially in entry level hires, we find the influence of the father, mother very important.
Hmm.
So you need to make sure your brand and your reputation is positive, because you never know who the candidate is listening to. And therefore, it's very important to have a very positive voice out in the market about your brand and your reputation. And it's not always good. People will say it's like an individual. Many friends and people in your acquaintances. I can guarantee you that not all of them say good things about me, or about one. There will be negative feedback. There will be positive feedback. But as long as it's honest feedback, so I think that becomes very important to ensure it's sustained. Um, the second thing I think, along with the people, that becomes important to sustain is really, uh, access to information when they're looking for it, and in the media that they're looking for it. And
Hmm.
all this really comes down to the kind of reputation that they carry about you, the experience they have with you. So yes, in some form or fashion, experience matters, but it's very dangerous to think candidate experience is only during the interaction, at the
Hmm.
interview, or during the selection process. Candidate experience happens all the time in your target market, or even beyond your target market. So I think I think one has to understand candidate experience as a much broader topic, rather than just that moment of interaction with the individual.
We have another question. This is again from the Facebook. Is the only objective of candidate experience hiring the candidate, or are there any other benefits or anything attached to it?
I can be very philosophical and say, we must give everybody we talk to a good experience, and that is important. As I said, reputation is carried by that. But at the end of the day, we are in the game to win. right? So, at the end of the day, as an organization, if you like a candidate, you want him to work for you. So yes, your primary focus on why do you focus on experiences so that you can close that candidate positively. So I think, to go into this, sort of, with a sense of, this is that it's important to do it because that's the right thing to do. Yes, it is, but you do want to close candidates. You do want them to join. You do want them to work with you. And that's what we drive hard towards. If you keep that as an outcome, I can guarantee you, you will find more funding available, more support, more energy around the importance of this, rather than just being an advocate without linking it to an end business outcome. Candidate experience has a direct implication on your brand, on your reputation, on whether clients will buy from you, and whether you have the capacity and ability to deliver. So it is not just about filling a position. It is much further beyond that. I'll just like to make a point. A lot of companies in India, you will notice, do much more recruitment marketing than they do than they do regular marketing, because in India the talent dividend is what is paying off, especially in our industry. So for us, candidate experience becomes, it's core to our business. It's not a peripheral nice to do anymore.
Um, we have another question on my inbox, and this reads: is candidate experience only restricted to the selection process, or it's actually handheld and goes beyond the onboarding and induction?
I think the person just picked up that from, clearly was reading my mind. Absolutely, it's much beyond the selection interview. Uh, I would encourage you to think about, we have a recruiter. Let me tell you a story instead of,
Oh,
we have a recruiter who decided that he started seeing more and more demand coming for a particular skill. And I forget what exactly the skill was, but he started seeing that demand. What he did was he started going to the net and finding people on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Twitter, people who had that experience, and created a community, a virtual community. I think it was on Google, and he basically nurtured that community by sending them articles, dropping them emails. That community grew to be a size of 400 people. This was, because he believed that this skill would be important to him to meet demand in the future. He didn't have anything right away to offer these people as a job, but he nurtured this virtual community. And that virtual community, when the time came, he recruited 8 people from there. You know, so,
wow.
if he had not built this to find those same 8 people, I would have paid, a significant amount of money to find. But because this individual had invested the time to think about what kind of talent the organization will need in future, and nurtured them, found them, connected with them, maintained them, network with them on his virtually, I think we were able to proceed much more. And that's really what, the question is about. How do you keep your connected and, hold hands with the candidate even before you know he's a candidate? So forget after he's become a candidate, and you then have to tell him that he's selected or not selected. It's actually even before you know if the candidate is a candidate, you need to make sure his experience is positive. So I think at the end of the day, if you believe that interaction should be positive, people should feel talking to Prithvi, talking to HCL, talking to Google, talking to Twitter, talking to People Matters is what they take away from that experience, and that is important. You will stay sure, you will continue to be sure that you remain courteous, responsive, connected, regardless of what the actual decision you're reaching at that point in time.
Brilliant. I have another question from Prasanna Ramamurthy, who asks, there is the time between a candidate has been offered a job and the date of joining. Suppose that time period is 1 month. How does one engage that candidate between this 1 month? I'm sure this forms a part of the candidate experience.
So we have something we call a post-offer follow-up process at the end of it sounds extremely boring, but thought through. So we picked this up from Singapore Airlines, for example. When you check in for Singapore Airlines and you're walking up to the check-in at the airport, you will you
Mhm.
will never see a line. You will be
Mhm.
out of there in about, I think, 53 seconds, if I'm not wrong. But you will
Mhm.
always feel as though the second person at the other side is only focused on you. She will say good morning. He will make
Mhm.
sure that he understands your preference. He will tell you to have a safe travel. He'll make sure your luggage gets picked up and put there quickly. And it's all done in a very quick manner, so you walk away very comfortable. And that's because behind the scenes he has a process outlined. As you see customer walk towards you, smile. Once customer is at your desk, wish them, ask about his day, give him take his passport. There's a clear steps outlined. So while you are going through an excellent experience, he is following a process. The same thing happens after an offer, right through till the person joins. And if I'm hoping many of the people on this call are recruiters, they need to do the same thing. So has the offer letter reached well? Was it typed correctly? Was it delivered carefully? That's the first step. The second step is, have I got a call into that candidate, make sure that the offer letter came in, he has any questions, I can answer them. Third step is, your joining date, can we agree on that? What should it be? Fourth step is, let me introduce you to somebody on your project who you're going to be working with, who'll be your buddy after you join. So the buddy actually gets introduced before you join. If something happens in your company or at HCL before the person joins, let me send you an email about our results or about a win we recently had. And
Mhm.
each of these steps of interaction is not just to stay connected, but in India, one sees a very interesting phenomena where you have a high reneg rate. I remember a few years ago reading in Economic Times that the reneg rate in some companies is as high as 60%. And I think, to make sure that, for us, that is, we keep it really low, because in each of those interactions we test, is the candidate engaged, is he worried about something. We make sure that the candidate is as excited about joining through that process than he is at the end. So for us, you can look at it as a checklist between the offer and the joining date, but it actually gives us guidance and from the candidate's perspective, it's an amazing experience, because he says, here is a company who's really excited to have me join. Now the challenge is doing this at scale. If you're hiring anywhere from 1,000 to 1,500 people a month, yes, there are different challenges to that. And you need to be cautious about that. So, you need to make sure that your process is industrialized, your people know what to do, and everybody's going through this in a consistent fashion. And that's where the experience of your recruiter and your recruiting organization comes in. Organizations who can do this at scale consistently every time, and come out with the same outcome, which is positive, are those that have sort of mastered the art. The others, need to work on it and make sure they get there. So yes, simple answer to a long answer to a simple question, but important to understand that there is clearly science in how you manage a candidate even after the offer.
Absolutely. So before we actually wind up, I have one last question for you. How do you? I mean, I'll club that into two questions actually. One is, is there what is the strategy for HCL? What is HCL seeing that in 2014? How are you going to take forward the candidate experience, and how is it that you see the future of recruitment?
The future of recruitment is changing. I think if the recruiter today feels that what he is or she is doing in terms of just the future of recruitment will have much more social interactions, will be much more virtual. The future of recruiting will be much more around ensuring that we understand the roles and the jobs that the individuals are doing, and we are able to share that with candidates much more proactively. I think
Mhm.
we are seeing that the ability to leverage both physical and virtual media will become essential. We are seeing more and more the importance of using gamification in some of our interactions so that we can improve the candidate experience. I think that's becoming, whether you look at video resumes, you look at, looking, understand, sending out, having conversations like this with candidates, all that becomes, those are becoming much more integral parts of the recruiting than ever before. This first part of your question, I think I haven't answered, so if you can repeat that, that'd be good.
I asked, what is it that HCL sees for
Right.
2014 as a goal?
So for us, it is important that we continue to continue on the. We've just recently, over the last years, transitioned our technology platform. So hopefully, our candidates who come on board, are experiencing the benefits of that. We continue to, enhance some of the ways in which we engage with them proactively. So I think for us, recruiting is very much uh, we focus on our numbers in line with our demand. So we will
Mhm.
continue to see growth, hopefully, as an organization, and that will make sure that we continue to see growth in recruiting as well. I think the kinds of skills that we are looking for, are evolving. So the importance of ensuring that candidates understand what we are looking for proactively, so that they're well aware of what we are looking for as future employees. It becomes important to let them know, and we do that through various ways, whether it's programs like we run we run idea blogathons, we run what I talked about on Twitter. All these are interventions. We have various games on our career sites which people engage with. Is really to help them with these outcomes of understanding what HCL is looking for, what kinds of roles are available, what kinds of jobs are available. And I think that's what you're going to see more and more from us, more creativity and more innovation in the way we engage and how we deliver on the experience that people are looking for.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Prithvi. Now, as we are nearing to the end of this session, I'd like to just sum it up a little. I'm sure it's very difficult to do that because, Prithvi, you have shared such insightful thoughts that it's very difficult for me to actually even sum it up in this 1 minute that I have. But you set a very kind words about that every industry must look at the other industries too for a recruitment candidate experience strategy, but of course think and then choose what's the best for them. Also, you mentioned about being the coolest is also in, so why not try something new like you have done with to interview. Um, you also spoke about the mystery shopping kind of an activity for ensuring and measuring the candidate experience that you have already set in place. So with all of this, we have to now close the session, unfortunately. While we are closing, I'd like to announce the winner for the most active listener today, and she is Tanvi Mishra. Her Twitter handle is @Tanvi H Mishra. Congratulations, Tanvi! Thank you so much for being active on Twitter at #TALeak. So the 1 year print and digital subscription from People Matters will reach you very soon. Congratulations once again. While we're ending the session, Prithvi, thank you very much for sharing what HCL does and what HCL has in store for this coming year and sharing your wonderful thoughts about candidate experience in all. Thank you very much, Prithvi.
Thank you for having me, and thank you all who've joined for joining.
Thank you very much. Thank you everyone for actually being a fantastic audience and actually even sending me questions on Facebook and on my account. It'll be great if you all can actually join on Twitter and so that everybody can actually see your views and your thoughts. With this, we'll have to wrap up this session today. We are coming up with yet an interesting session in July for the talent acquisition Twangout, the same time, 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. We will definitely stay connected with you and let you know on the schedule here on. Meanwhile, have a great evening and have a great day ahead. Thank you so much.